WrestleTalk.
Seth Rollins had a plan B, but it turns out he was an April Fool because his plan B did not work at all, and the Bloodline laid waste to Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins 1 week out from WrestleMania. I'm Luke Owen, DAD. I'm joined by Dan, the Truth, the Professor, your Jam That Champion, who will be defending the Jam That Championship this weekend at WrestleMania 40 against the winners of this year's Royal Jamble, Laurie Blake and Satini Yangi.
Do you know the ASMR things that the people do when they just...
I don't
get why. I don't like it.
It's a sex thing, right?
No.
No?
It's like it's not a sex thing. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who it's a sex thing, but there are some people who like do everything. Broccoli is a sex thing.
Is it?
Well, to some people, I'm sure.
Tender stem, right?
Well,
I mean, you probably wouldn't want to use regular.
The word
broccoli,
tender stem. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast. Please do press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe if this is your first time here and you've made it this far, and leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode of Raw. And please, of course, join at the live chat if you are watching us live and in person. Join the Swap Nation. Everyone's saying this is an early pod today, but it's not. The UK times have...
Oh, we're back.
We're back. The UK and US have merged back together. We are in sync with one another. It is 3 p.m. here. It is whatever your time is, wherever you are. We had a 2-week period.
Yes.
It is
no, I was just double checking because we've not fixed the clock in front of us, which does say it is 2, so that threw me. But no, it's 3 p.m.
It is 3 p.m. That's fine. I could have had another hour playing the showcase mode.
Could have in bed.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I think we should set up a little bed in the corner for this season.
I can't be in bed. I've got too much to do. CM Punk did an interview.
Watched that before going to bed.
AEW released 10 people from their contracts. Yeah. I had today's people are just like, where's the news? Where's the news? Guys, a lot has happened.
Yeah.
There was a lot of news for me to cover. It is a bumper news episode. I think it's going to be running about 20 minutes long.
Also, hilariously, I've only just realized this. It's like 10 a.m. in America. So for them, this is how Americans, and particularly our North American audiences, experience this. You watch the episode of television, you go to bed, you wake up and we're reviewing it, right? For you, it's an instantaneous thing. For us, I was up watching that Punk interview till 1 a.m. Then I had to get up at 6:30 to watch Raw today. Then I had to come all the way into work. It's 3 p.m. now. This is a full day for us. Life has happened. So I'm sorry the news is a little bit late for your morning Cheerio Fruity Pebbles.
It is 2 hours late. But we're working on it. Pete is currently watching it now, so it's going to be going up very, very shortly. You can go and watch it after you've watched this. If you are watching us live and you want to get your thoughts read out in the air about this episode of Raw, the AEW releases, the CM Punk interview, WrestleTalk.com/support will read out all of them before the end of the show. We did want to do a bonus podcast that was going to cover the Punk stuff, like cover the whole interview and cover the AEW releases as well, because we tend to do streamed when
big news
releases
like this,
or big news things. But I couldn't find.
We haven't got the time, Kimberly.
We've filmed the WrestleMania predictions. That's going out tomorrow. So unfortunately, there was just not enough time in the day for us to get an hour and a bit together to get everything else done. So apologies for that. But we are here to talk about Monday Night Raw. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you have any thoughts on the Punk thing, if you have any thoughts on the AEW thing, WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them before the end of the show. Apologies to our moderating team. That might make this one a bumper episode.
Slash a bit rough.
It's a bumper news episode. It's a bumper podcast episode. It's WrestleMania week. Well, I mean, it should be a bumper thing.
I will say, though, that the show really essentially was a great opener and a great closer, and then a bunch of stuff that sort of happened.
I thought last week's was a better go-home show.
Last week's was a fantastic go-home show. I actually liked the go-home angle. We'll talk about why later on, but the bulk of the show felt very traditional Triple H, which does bode well for the pay-per-view, because it was always the way, especially at the beginning. Rubbish go-home show, excellent pay-per-view.
Yeah. So the big news for this episode was that The Rock and Roman Reigns were going to be on the show. They did tease throughout the night as well. And they did say, Cody Rhodes is not here. He's not medically cleared from the beatdown last week. That'll come up later in the show. So The Rock opened the show, and they said on commentary, this will be The Rock's first match in 8 years. Which means the Eric Rowan match from WrestleMania does count.
Of course it does. Yeah. Was a match? There were 2 belts. We were all there.
It's just when people have been sending in UltraChats, like, yeah, The Rock hasn't had a match since like 2014.
Right.
Like, is there going to be ring rust? Like, what turns out he only wrestled 8 years ago.
Canon.
He's
canon.
He's absolutely fine. He talked about making Cody bleed last week, and now his belt is just missing Mama Rhodes' tears. And then he was like, of course, you all saw it, but these people also saw it as well, as WWE continued their tradition of making children cry. As they showed these 2 clips, like these viral clips, I'd imagine, of little kids watching it, be like, Cody got beaten up.
Do you remember there was a clip of that little girl crying because she didn't want Tony Blair to not be Prime Minister anymore? Kids cry at all stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look at Chad's kid. And so hilariously, they had this video of kids crying, and it came back, and this New York crowd went, Rocky, Rocky, Rocky.
Which, that's my energy.
But The Rock said, this does break my heart. I'm a girl dad. I don't want to see little girls' cries. However, sometimes a man has got to do what a man has got to do, and there are moments when people talk S, and they need to not be talking S, excuse you.
That was this.
And he said that professional wrestling is cool again. Ratings are skyrocketing because of The Rock. This is another record sellout for Monday Night Raw because of The Rock. And finally, the final boss has come back to Brooklyn, and I've not come alone. And out comes Roman Reigns, flanked by Heyman, Jimmy, and Solo. And Michael Cole dropped this very interesting statistic. On Saturday, Roman ties Hulk Hogan for the most WrestleMania main events. And on Sunday, he breaks that record.
Wow. So there's your Hogan record broken, so we don't have to worry about the days.
Do you think that counts?
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. Someone, I can't remember who this was, and credit to them for posting about it rather than me. But you know that you was always talking about he's not that far away from Hogan's 1474 or whatever. People talking about breaking that record.
Yeah.
That's breaking a record to come second. Nobody wants that. Like, sod that.
Well, have you seen my gimmick for Monday Night War? Like,
well,
and also, I mean, have you spoken to my wife? I love coming second.
I don't need you to do those jokes. That's like that last week when you were talking about.
Oh, what? Yeah, when you were talking about.
Stop
it! Chowing down on Tuna Town. Anywho.
So the Roman comes out.
Roman comes out, and the crowd are chanting yeet at him because this crowd wants Jey Uso to be part of this story, but WWE don't. And he was like, if you continue to do that, I'm just going to leave.
That's my favourite thing
So
Roman
the crowd
does.
carried on doing it. He thanks The Rock for doing what he did last week because on SmackDown it was revealed that the attack on Cody was not The Rock's choice. It was a Roman directive. He sent The Rock to Raw to attack Cody Rhodes. Sat and I did talk about that on the SmackDown podcast on Saturday. Or did we? No one will ever know now. Thank you to everyone who did show up for the SmackDown review that we did on Saturday.
Yeah.
Apologies that it was...
The internet didn't show up.
Yeah, the internet did not show up. It worked for the first 16 minutes of the show.
That's all you need.
And then we got into the UltraChats and it just fell apart.
Great.
And I don't know what happened, but my internet would work and then Sat's wouldn't. Then Sat's would work and mine wouldn't.
Ugh.
Mine was choppy. It was the actual frame rate was fine, but it was my audio was crackling
Crushing.
in and out.
Yeah.
Crushing. It was awful. So in the end, I just made the decision. I was like, we're going to finish this show, and I'm just going to make this video private so no one will ever see this again. So you're lucky if you did see it.
It was fine. It was a bland episode of SmackDown anyway, so...
I like the Jade thing.
That was the only good thing.
That was the only thing. What I might have done is just trim that podcast down to those 16 minutes where we
Yeah.
just talked about the Jade thing. But anyway, yeah, so Roman thanked The Rock for what he did last week, and then said that, look, we've been making wrestling cool since 2020. Lol. And what was Cody doing? Really nothing when you think about it. He was not making wrestling cool again. He was off doing his own little thing. This is our mountain and we run it. And out comes Seth Rollins, Shield style through the crowd. The crowd were really hot to see Seth Rollins there. And he said,
that one kid was frozen with excitement.
There's one kid who was filming him.
I had two thoughts about that. My first is, when you're in a live crowd experiencing something, you want to film a little bit to keep home. 15 seconds is probably enough to then put your phone in your pocket and experience the fact. Oh my god! Experience the fact that Seth Rollins is right there in front of you, and actually, by virtue of him being there, you're probably on TV as well, looking like a person. Instead, you chose to be there the whole time like this.
It's good. For all your listeners, I've got my phone up right in Dan's face. Alex, Queen of the Ring's got a photo of, and this kid is right in Seth's
And
face.
then my other thought is, if I'm Seth Rollins, Just move down a
Just-
couple of
yes,
steps,
couple of
mate.
steps.
I don't. This is such a big arena. Like, come on.
So funny. Anyway, Seth was there for a fight. He wanted a fight tonight, so he challenged The Rock to a match. He said this sold-out crowd in New York deserves a mega main event. So I challenged The Rock to a match. But hey, if DJ doesn't have the balls, maybe Roman Reigns wants to step up.
Oh my god, the crowd ate it up.
The crowd went ballistic for this.
Yeah.
And then The Rock was like,
Nah.
you won't be fighting me. And you won't be fighting Roman. And the crowd figured out what was going and just went, boo!
Yeah.
And Solo stepped up and the crowd booed even more. And he was like, you're going to be fighting me. This was not, oh, boo, WWE's storyline, boo. I can't believe the Bloodline are doing it. This was 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
No, we don't like this. I want the other thing.
Yeah.
And you can tell that was the reaction that WWE weren't expecting or didn't want, because later on when they showed a recap, they edited out the boos for Solo Sikoa.
Well, I think it's an indictment of the fact that they failed to capitalize on the fact that Solo killed John Cena a couple of weeks ago, like a couple of months ago even. Like that happened and then very little follow-up took place, right? Because you could have made the argument that if maybe Roman or Rocky were like into it and they were like, oh yeah, and then Solo's like, no, back down, I've got this one. Maybe that's a more
different.
artful way of doing it.
Yeah.
But because I actually thought the whole segment up until that point was really good, like really great stuff. The Rock coming out, giving his, like, oh my god, that entrance! I watched it twice. Like it's like they've bit by bit they've done something new to it every week and figured out this is the final form, and then we're going to get one more at WrestleMania.
I was going to say,
incredible.
I feel like because The Rock's probably sticking around post WrestleMania, it's just going to keep something added to it every single time.
I don't know if we're going to get him post WrestleMania, and we might not. So I feel like I'm going to enjoy it very much while we have it, because this one feels special. The electricity in the room and all of that stuff. The crowd chanting what for him, and he's the only man in the world who is like empowered by the what chant. He was like there at its genesis and all that stuff. So he's like, yeah, all right, the what, that'll make me more confident. Try it, kind of thing. The fact that the crowd want to cheer him, but he's so good at, you know, figuring it out, and then like, oh yeah, we're supposed to boo you, kind of thing. The hypocrisy of him saying like moments in life where people stick their nose where it doesn't belong. Like you sticking your nose into Cody's business by trying to take him out of the main event.
Great heel work.
All of it. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Then when Roman comes out, it's like, oh, yeah, you're both this. Until Roman started talking, and I was like, oh, you're actually mildly outshadowed by The Rock. But even so, I still think your presence, I still think your aura, the presentation, you're special, emphasized by that documentary that came out the night before. And then Seth comes out, and there was a fire in his belly, and maybe it was the presence of the crowd. Maybe it's because I was so tickled pink by that kid with the phone. I was loving it. Right?
I've got to think that the hot crowd, because this crowd were hot
it's
for
Brooklyn,
this
isn't it?
segment. Like you've got to be pretty fired up by it. I think I would disagree on the Roman thing though. I thought Roman felt better here than he did on the SmackDown promo a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
When he had the face-to-face with Cody.
Yeah,
and it was
yes,
just
I agree with that.
And it felt like he was just sort of walking his way through. It felt like a pedestrian Roman promo. Here I felt like he actually had a bit of presence about him.
Yes.
And like I felt this was like good. This was go-home promo energy from Roman that I kind of needed. And the main event of the show, because Rock announced that it was going to be Bloodline Rules, which is a nice teaser for what's coming this weekend should Rock and Roman beat Seth and Cody on night one. It was Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa.
But sorry, just if I can to speak about the solo part, it did then feel like, oh, that's a bit of a letdown actually. And I could then hear someone in my head being like, well, you don't want to give away your Rock match for free on Raw, you know, save it for WrestleMania or whatever. And I was like, well, Hulk Hogan wrestled the night before WrestleMania XL, or the Raw before WrestleMania XL. Yeah. Hulk Hogan made his return to WWE. The first time people saw him wrestle was in a tag match on Monday Night Raw before, well, it was a handicap match, I think it was. I went back and watched it. So like you could do it, or at least you could tease it, and it doesn't have to be legit.
Well, that's the thing is, if don't tease it then.
Right. This was the thing. And I think had they not let the heat on Solo go so cold after John Cena, it would have been more of a mouth-watering prospect.
I think that's a huge part of the problem with this opening segment. Well, I don't say the huge part of the problem with this segment, because the segment was great. It's the Solo Sikoa thing landed spectacularly flat. And I think the reason for that is because Solo squashed John Cena at Crown Jewel and has done nothing since.
And I mean, hey, one for the let it play out crowd, what we then subsequently got in the main event did everything for me. I was like fizzing with excitement. So. Yeah. You know, the end that we got to was good, but there was definitely a moment of like, oh, did you hear that crowd thinking they were going to get a Rock match, then get very bothered that they were essentially just going to get a match that they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, a match they actually weren't that interested in seeing.
It was odd.
And it was Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa in a Bloodline rules
okay,
match.
Don't worry about it.
I'm so choked up. It's because I've had 2 successful jokes on this show.
You're the adrenaline.
These things, the adrenaline in my soul, these things just don't happen.
That's you done now till 2026.
Well, my wife has said.
Ah!
I'm kidding. This is Seth's first match since the knee injury.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think of that.
I did think about it. I was like, you know, his whole shtick is like, I'm the workhorse champion. I do nothing but work. And I was like, yeah. And then comes like, oh, yes, I missed a show. And I was like, yeah, not doing much.
Hey, takes a lot of effort to wear those heels.
Yeah, I guess so. Crowd chanted for tables early because, of course, they did. And turns out what a Bloodline rules match is. It's a no DQ match.
Yeah, I think we all knew that, though, is the thing.
No, because
you said this earlier on, and I didn't. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was expecting something more, like, because they were like, and if we win, it's going to be Bloodline rules. You're like, oh, that sounds like a whole new stipulation.
Well, I think maybe I was burned by the tribal combat thing. So I'm like,
or maybe I should have seen it coming.
Bloodline rules to me just basically says we get to be there.
But
I always thought it was that.
Great, but they do that anyway. Have we all forgotten how all Roman matches end?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, like, this I actually was really let down by this. I was like, man, what are we going to see? What's going to be involved in it? 2 tables and a chair.
Yeah, the thing is, the match for me one thing. It was the angle that was the other.
Yes. Well, I think that the crowd responded in kind to that, because I think this crowd looked at this match and were like, there's something more to be had. Like, this is not really Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa. That is a backdrop to the angle that is actually going to come next. And Seth basically had the match won. Jimmy ran down to attack Seth. Jay ran down to attack Jimmy. They started to brawl up the ramp, and they brawled to the back. And then The Rock came out, having beaten up Jey Uso. Thought it really chumpatized Jay and Jimmy.
Yeah.
Their build will come on SmackDown.
Jay being launched out from the back, I did quite enjoy that.
Great, yeah.
It was a great visual.
Great visual.
Where was the other time that I've seen something like that? There was a time that WWE specifically did this where they were like backstage and then someone got thrown out and then someone walks out.
Can't remember.
I can't remember.
It's probably happened about a bunch of times.
Someone on the chat was. But it was a very specific moment of like, and it was a big return, and it was like I don't know what it was. Anyway.
Yeah. So, the visual of Jay being thrown out, it was great because it was such a cool reveal of The Rock. But it also really was there to be like, these two don't matter, but The Rock does very much matter. But as I said, the Jimmy Jay build, not for this show. That's going to be safe for SmackDown because it's Jay versus Solo on SmackDown. So that build, their go-home angle, was not for this episode. So yeah, sure. Looked like The Rock chumpatized them, but their build's for SmackDown. Yeah. Their build wasn't meant to be here.
I also have a little note that I was writing. I was writing, I don't think they've done a particularly good job of selling all of this. Seth going through a Bloodline rules match before he works double duty, but then also selling it as a preview of the Bloodline rules match. Literally, as I was writing that sentence, Pat McAfee on commentary was like, Seth has got 2 matches at WrestleMania. What's he doing here? And I was like, oh, fair enough. Okay, you've done it. You've done it. Fair play to you, Pat McAfee.
So The Rock comes out and he gets into the ring, and Seth's plan B comes into action. He told Kathy Kelly before this match he always has a plan B. He wasn't going to turn on Roman this time. 10 years since he first introduced the plan B thing. And out comes Cody Rhodes. Cody's music hits. Huge pop from the crowd.
Don't undersell this. It was electric.
It was a huge monster pop from the crowd. You're the top star here. And this crowd was so excited to see him. I thought that the fact that he wasn't there in the opening, the fact that they'd said throughout the show, Cody's not here, in the back of your mind, you're like, surely he is, though. It's the go-home show. I get staying at home and selling the angle, but this is the go-home show. So when Seth got that little smile on his face and the music hit and out came Cody, this place came unglued. It was fabulous. It was so, so great. He comes down and he starts brawling with The Rock. And I was giddy with excitement. The brawling I thought was so good. Him and Seth started brawling with him. Cody then gets The Rock up onto the announcer's table. T's doing a rock bottom through the table. And Roman Reigns, who earlier in the show had said, I'm leaving now because I'm going to go write Paul Heyman's induction speech for the Hall of Fame. He's inducting Paul Heyman, by the way. Came out and he stopped Cody. And then he and The Rock beat down Cody and Rollins. They took off the weight belt, the American Nightmare weight belt, whipped them like government mules, and left them laying. Yeah. You were a big fan of this closing angle?
I thought it was spectacular for a number of reasons. First of all, I just loved Rock's sort of sauntering presence, the arrogance of it all. Getting in the ring, Seth having a little welt on his face, I assume, from taking a particularly stiff shot or something like that, looking like a bit being down. And then that little smile on. And then I'm like, oh, it's happening. Because I will say, when Michael Cole said Cody Rhodes isn't here, I bought it. Like, at the time. And, like, yes, you are right. There was a voice in the back of my head that was like, surely they won't do that. Like, maybe he'll make a big surprise return in the main event or something like that. But I was a little bit like, oh, man, they've underdone Cody here. That's a real shame. So when then Cody's music hits, the colors of the lights change, and the crowd pops so hard that I can't hear the song. Like, that's an Austin pop. Do you know what I mean? You get the crash, the scream. I was like, there were Cody chants. Like, and I had been nervous earlier in the night where we'd had Brooklyn is. So there's a bit in Becky Lynch's book where they're talking about it's her turn at SummerSlam on Charlotte Flair that happens in Brooklyn, and they say that the crowd, they're telling her like, oh, the crowd are going to cheer because they're a heel crowd. They just do the opposite of what we want. And Becky's like, no, you're just writing this badly. Like, you just don't understand. And Brooklyn has that energy of people who are very vocal. And because especially what we're getting from The Rock is so good, we're inclined to cheer it because we're like, yes, this is good stuff. So I was worried that they were going to not like respond in kind to the sort of Cody of it all. So then when I heard that pop, I was like, oh my God, it's working. This is wrestling working. I think I'm so nervous from the smart fandom that we've had for the past sort of 10 or so years that good stuff that I think is good storytelling isn't going to be received properly because the fans have already anticipated themselves getting tired of it. Do you know what I mean? So to have that confirmation in that moment was really fun. To then cut to The Rock looking like, oh crap.
Rock sold this so great.
Unbelievable. Because if he had done anything other than what he did, it would have completely ripped out the momentum from underneath Cody Rhodes. It's that, I think, you know the guy, his name is Cactus Jack, the face of a ghost on Triple H, that really sold the Cactus Jack reveal. It's that, I'm always looking for that. You are as good as your opponent. Do you know what I mean? So him being able to really sell for Cody in that moment is one thing. Cody sporting the big oversized plaster, which is a staple of Triple H era that I love. The getting in the ring and just pounding away on The Rock, and The Rock selling. You know how last week we were so excited because we hadn't seen The Rock get physical? Here's The Rock getting a beatdown. I don't think I've seen The Rock get a beatdown since 2013, 2014.
Well, yeah, since the Cena feud.
There you go.
And even then, he wasn't doing angles like this because he was the babyface going in.
Exactly.
Like, all of the Cena stuff was just like, I say something, you say something, I say something, you say something.
He rocks up, he'll do a spine buster, a people's elbow, and go away. To see The Rock get beaten down felt like a big moment.
He was doing his Rock selling, and it was great.
Yeah, when Cody and Seth rip the table apart, and he gets up there, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna give The Rock a table move. Like he's gonna do the crossroads. Oh my God, he's gonna do the Rock bottom. I was almost standing at that point. I was so excited. And then when Roman gets in there, having thought he had left earlier on, I'm like, oh, it's all just kicking. There was a moment where they trip over the announce table, but something about the both of them, Roman, his hair has fallen out, that makes him furious. Seth goes to reach for a chair because he's thinking in the moment. That's what makes the people at the top, right? He's able to think so quickly. Now, that wasn't a stumble. I'm using this to my advantage. Roman gets around it. It's all so good. Then we get into the ring. The beatdown begins. I hadn't noticed that the weight belt that Rock is wearing is a nightmare belt. So when he pulls it off, I was like, oh, you cow. And he's whacking him with his own belt. Oh, all of that's fantastic. Ordering Solo to hold Cody there. There was a little part of me that was like, oh no, is this just a massive burial? And then I realized this is the final preview of what is going to happen. So you thought, Cody and Seth, that you had a plan B. You thought you were ready. You thought you'd outsmarted the Bloodline. Well, let me tell you, you haven't. You've not figured it out yet. You've got one more week, less than 6 days, to get your act together and figure it out. Otherwise, you will never finish that story. And that, for me, was like chef's kiss, cinema, Martin Scorsese stuff. I was like, this is the perfect closing moment for me to believe that my hero isn't going to get it done. Because how can you think you're ready and, you know, balls it up? I thought it was outstanding.
I thought it was good.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
No, I did. I thought it was a good closing angle. I think that...
Just enjoy wrestling.
I think.
How about that?
I did. That's why I enjoyed myself in this segment. And now I'm doing my job. I think part of the problem was they'd set...
Oh, I'm sorry. I just realized there were full-throated Rocky Sucks chants right at the end. Like, not like this crowd that had cheered for him at the beginning, screaming Rocky Sucks at the end. And then Michael Cole said it better. He was like, for the sake of their lives, they better win this tag match. Oh my God, what a great call from Michael Cole. This was all so good.
I'll get to that bit. Because that was that's actually my favourite part of the segment.
I was just worried that you were like, this is fine.
No, I didn't say it was fine. I said it was
outstanding.
good. I thought it was good.
It wasn't good. It was outstanding.
It was good. It was a good angle. They'd set a very high bar last week.
Right.
And you were never going to get
blood.
Because blood. They set
swearing.
Well, I mean, obviously that does make wrestling better. I actively proved that last week. But and the numbers don't lie. They spelled disaster for you. They set such a high bar. They were never going to get past that bar. So I'm not saying last week's angle was so good and this was nowhere near as good in comparison, because I don't think that's a fair comparison. But what this was a very good, effective angle in selling all of the things that you just said then, because it's about selling Bloodline rules. Yeah, it turns out Bloodline rules isn't actually that exciting. It's just a no DQ match. But that's by the by. What this was about was the Bloodline standing tall. It doesn't matter how smart Cody and Seth think they are. The Bloodline have always actually got the plan B. Then your plan B is not even good enough. You need a plan C, D, E, F, and even they will not be good enough. But for me, what really sold this angle and what sold the visual of all of this was Michael Cole at the end. And this is how the show went off the air. It's The Rock and Roman holding up their respective belts. Rock's got his world title. Rock is holding up his American Nightmare weight belt. Is Cole says they have to win that tag match on Saturday. Because if they don't... And that was it. And that was it. It was nothing else. That, for me, is the cinema of this. Like, the angle itself, good. It was a very good angle. That closing line, that was perfect. Because it didn't have an end. It just lets you, the audience, imagine what that means.
Yeah.
Because if they don't...
Oh, I was like begging for him not to finish the sentence with something limp. And this is something, look, I did my first live commentary on a show a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I was learning in the moment was sometimes, and I do this on this show as well, you know, it's a thing I'm trying to get better at. Sometimes I go into a sentence with the absolute confidence and then I lose my way and it ends limply and it frustrates me whenever it happens. So I was like, don't fumble that sentence because this is incredible. So when he just left it hanging, that gets a visceral reaction from me as an audience member. I thought it was an outstanding call from Michael Cole.
Yeah, I thought that was the best way to end off this show. So that it was a very good angle.
I thought it was a great angle.
I thought it was a very good angle.
I thought it was a great angle.
That, I think, set out the stall for this Mania. And again, it's worked. This crowd was so hot for it. Looking at the live chat here, everyone's so into what is going on. And and we'd say this on the WrestleMania predictions, which we're going out tomorrow here on the WrestleTalk Podcast channel and in your podcast feeds. I have not seen this level of hype for a WrestleMania since X7. And we go into this whole thing of like the difference between hype and excitement. Everyone is always excited for WrestleMania, but people are more than excited for WrestleMania. They are hyped for WrestleMania. And that's the difference. And so if I may finish.
Please.
And a lot of that is down to, and this is the point I was making last week, it is the star presence that WWE currently has on its roster, where everyone feels larger than life. Everyone is bigger and better than any other form of entertainment. This feels like the apex. This is like, people talk about 2001. 2001, that was the peak of WWE. It was not only their creative peak, it was the peak of fan interest. And WWE has never been within an arse's roar of being that peak again. And I think they are now. Ratings are obviously a very different thing because
the landscape is a different thing.
Exactly, landscape's different things. Cable cutting and everything. WWE's ratings from like compared to 2019 to now, down by 600,000 viewers. So despite the fact everyone's like, ratings are an all-time high. 5 years ago, they were higher. And the product was stone cold at that point. But it feels hotter. It does feel like they are at a peak, and they are so excited. And that is the level of hype going into this year's WrestleMania.
Yeah,
I cannot tell you how excited I am.
Yeah, it's this. I keep saying it's fizzy. I feel fizzy. I feel nervous that the result that I want isn't going to happen. I feel excited that it might. You know, it's all of that. It's like, I'm always excited to watch WrestleMania, and I'm always keen to see how it's going to end. And I wonder if they're going to do that, and I wonder if they're going to do this, and then we'll see what happens for the next couple of months. This feels like a new era. This feels like a new era in the way last year felt like that, but it didn't. A lot feels like, for me as a fan, I feel like a lot is riding on this WrestleMania, because that's a large part of the reason I was more, well, I guess let's see what happens next, than a lot of people last year with the result of the match. I wanted Cody to win, but I wasn't as cross as others. This year, I will be furious if it doesn't happen, because they have sucked me in so much, and they have begged for my investment, and I've given it to them in a way that I haven't felt like this since I was a child. So I will be crushed if my investment isn't returned. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's this weird, and yet they could go another way with it entirely, because that's wrestling. This happens. Sometimes the dream doesn't come true, but it's also fiction. It's theater, so you want a resolution. I don't know. There's so many emotions and feelings I have going. I don't know if it's because I've spent more time analyzing it this year than I have in my life, or if it's just because the quality is so much better.
I think it's the quality. I think last year was the prelude. Last year had a lot of excitement going into it, because we all thought that Cody was going to win, and that was going to be the end of the Bloodline, and that sets up a really exciting, well, what's next for the Bloodline scenario. Turns out it wasn't. It was the prelude to this year. But now the hype is real. We talk about this on tomorrow's prediction show, so we won't talk about it too much now, but there is... while I get the argument of like, do another year, like, to build this, and you do it at WrestleMania 41. Now's the time.
Yeah, you need to know when to leave the party.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's see what you thought of this episode of Monday Night Raw. I've seen a lot of people in the live chat, because people are very, very excited for this, and they do want to see our live reactions to this. And we have already announced that we are going to be doing live reactions for WrestleMania. Fortunately, our watch party fell apart due to logistical issues, so we couldn't get all of you together like we had planned and we had been planning for. But
London ain't friendly to nighttime. That's what we're learning.
Well, that's what we've learned. But we wanted to do our live reactions here from the studio anyway. But this is WrestleMania. Not only that, it's WrestleMania 40. Not only that, it's WrestleMania 40 with the biggest tag match in WrestleMania history, and it's WrestleMania with Cody and Roman, probably, most likely, almost for sure, Cody winning the belt. And I wanted that live feel. And so I've found a way. Because we have teamed up with Hooked on Wrestling, and we will be doing our live reactions live from a venue in Old Street in London with 300 wrestling fans behind us.
Woof.
So excited we're going to be doing it live from a venue in London with 300 wrestling fans. Live reactions the way that we feel that is the best way to get the most out of these things. You're going to see hundreds of wrestling fans reacting to every single match along with us, and we're so excited for it. I cannot wait. Big thank you to Hooked on Wrestling for teaming up with us on this and allowing us to be part of their live events.
Big time. And
it's great, because if this works out for us and we can do live reactions with them in the future, if some of our parties have fallen apart, unfortunately Elimination Chamber fell apart as well, just logistical issues, this is a way that we can see us being able to do that. Because Hooked on Wrestling do events up and down the country.
Yeah.
So this is a way for us to potentially do live reactions up and down the country.
I mean, also, look, we have 3 pay-per-views, one announced this very morning, happening at convenient hours for UK broadcasters.
That's right.
So, you know, between Backlash France, Bash at Berlin, and now Clash of the Castle over in Glasgow.
And the Saudi show.
Oh, and the Saudi show. I forgot that one. But the exciting European ones, it's like, it's a big year.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah, it's getting particularly for our live events and stuff. So yeah, we're very, very excited about that. But huge thank you to Hooked on Wrestling. I wish I could tell you to go and buy tickets, but I think it's already sold out. Yeah. So you can try and get tickets. Good luck. But good luck to you is what I'll say. Do join in the conversation. WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them before the end of the show. Blake here said, it bothers me more than it should. Everyone keeps naming Cody's allies after Marvel's Avengers when they're fighting a literal DC villain. Also, very happy you're discussing my Commissioner Gold punishment idea for my GM could be my legacy for WrestleTalk.
It's just I'm so confused by this UltraChat because I thought Black Adam was a good guy.
Well, I think, Blake, what that tells you... I mean, actually, what it tells you everything you need to know about the DCEU and its level of popularity. Ben here said, Roman desperately needed to deliver a hell of a promo to not completely be overshadowed by The Rock. Instead, he stumbled over his words and reacted too early before Rollins' music even hit. Later on during the attack, he even tripped up and fell. Yikes. I'm being overcritical, or am I? Roman did just fine, but you're the main event of both nights at Mania. You're the greatest champ in the modern era, if not ever. Remind people who the F you are, why it is personal to you. I know you got kids. Cody always bringing up Dusty was hoping Roman getting personal and mentioning that how not only is his family a dynasty, but they have given everything to this business. They have died for it. Roman lost his brother, his uncles. He can't give them the belt either. He'd go on to say something, hey, I'm not a writer, not my job, but imagine how powerful and personal of a promo it would be. Letting Cody know, you don't get to finish the story by ruining mine. My family sacrificed too much, you don't even know. Instead, we got a fine promo. I was hoping he'd get at least he'd get into a one-on-one fight with Cody, but even there, The Rock overshadowed him with his goofy selling. Hey, still excited for both main events. Roman could have pulled a lifetime performance in them. There's a part of that I don't disagree with.
Some of it I don't disagree with.
We haven't had that Roman promo.
Again, but that's why... So this is the... Sorry.
I was going to say, again, we talk about this in the WrestleMania predictions show tomorrow, so I'm not going to cover too much, but this build has been great. But if you remove The Rock, how great has it been?
Again, we talk about it tomorrow. Timey-wimey stuff is really confusing me because when we were shooting the podcast, when we shoot the predictions, we were talking about yesterday's podcast, which is now, but now you're talking about tomorrow, and that was before. I'm very confused.
By the way, I'm also saying that The Rock is here, so that is the timeline that we are currently living in. I'm just putting it out there as not hypothetical.
My thing was I've not finished the whole Roman documentary, but right at the beginning, here's a little voiceover where he talks about wanting to make the most money, and I think that there is more money to be made with Roman not having the belt now. Personally, I think you can see a greater investment. You can perhaps tell the story that you're mentioning here in the future. Like there's still more mileage. Roman's incredible run as the head of the table does not end with a title loss. It moves to the next chapter, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of what you mentioned there could come out. That.
As I said, and I think you're looking at the live chat there.
Also, The Rock's goofy selling, get out.
Looking at the live chat there. Some people think that is fair. I agree with some points of it, but not all of what Ben had to say there. But I do agree that I needed a Roman promo. I needed that Roman promo to kind of build this WrestleMania match. Because really, we look at the end of this angle here. It was more about building the tag match than it was the Night 2 match.
Yeah.
Kevin said, hey, Rock, can you stop swearing every 3 seconds? I'm trying to listen to the show. Joking aside, great episode. I'm thinking about taking my Monday off work to watch WrestleMania live. I'm so hyped. Time for talk is over. Mania season is here. It's Mania week. That's why I had such a busy news episode today. Will Campbell, hi guys. Thought this was a really good show. The closing angle also made me excited for the weekend. I think the last couple of weeks have done a really good job to heat up the tag match. Seth's match with Drew, and to a lesser extent, Cody and Roman's match. I'd agree with that. We got a Streamlabs missing name. Please do let our moderators know. I'm of the mind whether the match ends via DQ, Sami Bronson, or via stoppage, Seth Solo. You should probably, in my best Dario Cueto, ring the bell. Also, I'm not sure how I feel about a 7-minute match during a commercial-free hour, otherwise good show.
When they said they were doing commercial-free, I was like, oh, so what's happened is they've realised they keep having to cut time from everywhere else, and they just went, sod it, the best time we can cut is the commercials. Yeah. Just let them go.
But it also means, because if you have a commercial-free first hour, it means hours 2 and 3 have more commercials.
Yeah, that's true. But I'd rather they did it that way around than go, cut half of this.
Yeah. Did make the show feel long this week. This did feel like a long episode of Raw. And I agree with this Streamlabs user as well. If you're doing the no contest in the main event, don't do one earlier in the night. Actually, that actively annoyed me. Luke Graham, when Seth challenged The Rock, the crowd went ballistic. I wish someone called an audible and agreed to that with Bloodline rules. The Rock would have needed to wrestle, but it would have kept the crowd hot since they were sad Solo. As when they said Solo, the crowd died a death. Which they did. Former mod Jalen. So, I predict, I will bet money that on SmackDown, Roman will spear Rock, and that plants the seeds for a turn. Hopefully at Mania, the tag match doesn't even happen, and Rock just turns on Roman instantly, just gifting Cody the wins over 2 nights.
I would find that incredibly disappointing.
I would too, I'm afraid, Jalen. I also don't think Rock, Roman, Cody, or Seth are on SmackDown this week.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Roman is inducting Paul Heyman. So whatever angle happens, they don't want to pull the rug out from under it immediately. But because what I've actually thought that the Rock's promo after the show went off the air last week, and who posted the extra footage. Oh, you think because you said we're clear, that means I'm going to stop? I loved that. They don't want to expose the business by having this happen on the same night as we're going to have the Hall of Fame. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah, I just don't think all 4 of them are on the show.
Yeah.
I think that show is built around, I think they'll do some Bayley EO stuff. I think they'll have, obviously they've got the Jay Solo main event, which will be there to hype Jay and Jimmy. And they got the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I think those will be the 3 focus points of the show.
Yeah.
Raymond, on the subject of Solo getting booed and not being over since Cena is simply a missed opportunity. Personally, I would have given him a legend killer gimmick, culminating in Solo versus Orton at Mania. I can't agree more that they've completely dropped the ball with Solo. Effective. Yeah, I thought it was such a great thing they did at the Saudi show, and there's been 0 follow-up to it. Real shame. Mr. Eli Mack. Hey guys, I really enjoyed Roman on this episode. I felt like this was the energy he needed from that SmackDown episode. I think The Rock being there was what Roman needed to get that energy. I also love seeing The Rock get into a brawl because it gave it a chance to see his selling, and I enjoyed that selling. I hope this is showing that he is going to do a great job at WrestleMania. I think he is. I think that tag match is going to be great. Homerstar said...
the thing about... we talked about when The Rock has his conditioning or whatever, and he comes in and he gets blown out from doing a rock bottom. I think people underestimate how much these wrestlers care, about being in good nick. So I think if Rock had felt that, he'll have probably spent the past few months trying to fix that.
Yeah. Homerstar said, I'm really annoyed at how much WWE fumbled the ball on Solo. Before Rock returned, I fantasy booked a story where Solo turns on Roman and becomes the new tribal chief with Heyman as manager. Now he's somehow lower than Jimmy. Cena's win over Cena meant nothing. Kind of in the end it has. Vandalia 1998. Every 5 years, the WWE title changes hands in a big match. 5 was the Mega Powers, 10 was Brett, 15 was Austin, 20 was more about the world title, and 25, the title wasn't important. But 30 had Bryan and 35 had Kofi, so I'm hoping. So the problem there with Vandalia 1998's thing is every 5 years, apart from these ones here, because they don't really matter, but on the other 5 years, it's coincidence.
I also just really like that we get the every 5 years, every 10 years, every 20 years, every day ending in day, we get something. I'm like... Yeah. So sometimes you're looking for patterns where there aren't patterns. Sometimes there are patterns.
Sometimes there are. Sometimes there are just coincidences.
Yeah.
and a lot of those I feel like are just coincidences. Yeah. Particularly if in your own arguments you say in 2 of them the match wasn't important.
Yeah.
But and the one 5 years later it did matter. Space Viking, I thought Bloodline rules would mean that the Bloodline only would have a no DQ stipulation. Cody would have to wrestle within normal rules, which made sense to me because the Cody Vengers could take out the Bloodline without touching Roman. Oh well. Jonathan says, hey, Luke and Dan, awesome end to a go-home show. WrestleMania is looking to...
So sorry, I just was rereading that previous chat.
Is looking to be great. And after the beatdown leads me to think that the faces are losing night 1. But how much do you guys think with the Bloodline rules that Austin and Cena will appear for Cody? I'm pretty begged on that the Bloodline are winning night one.
Yeah.
I as soon as they announced that it was a stipulation involved, I was like, oh, well, they're winning.
Yeah, at this point, I feel that was the thing. I think with a lot of the show, they've managed to build. It could go either way, and there is an argument to be made that the worst nightmare the Bloodline could possibly experience is having to have a normal one-on-one match. I know, but they always have found a way. All of the others have been normal one-on-one matches. I know, but you could have made that storyline. That just isn't the storyline they've told. Because
I would probably put money on that Solo will interfere in the tag match. So is that Bloodline rules?
Well, there you go.
That's crazy with Bloodline rules. He's just allowed to.
Yeah.
He'll just come out with his hoodie and the referee will be like, actually, you're okay this time.
Bloodline rules.
Can't stop you, I guess. Spaceman, and then with regards to, do you think Austin and Cena appear? I'm saying yeah.
I kind of want it.
I kind of want it.
Against my better judgment, overbook the hell out of it.
But I won't be mad if it doesn't happen.
That's it.
I want to make this abundantly clear now, because this happened a lot in the early days of AEW. Every time CM Punk did not show up at the end of an AEW pay-per-view, we would get messages from people like, worst pay-per-view of the year, CM Punk didn't show up. Because people had convinced themselves that Punk was going to be there in like the first 5 AEW pay-per-views. So if you have convinced yourself that Austin and Cena and Triple H and all these people are going to run out and do a big old Avengers Assemble thing, and it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean it was a bad match. And I think those things are going to happen.
Yeah.
I think all of those things are going to happen, but I won't be mad if they don't. Space Mountain said, Dan already said it, but I appreciate that even though the fans cheer The Rock, when it's time to boo The Rock, they cheer Cody and do it. Also, that camera shot, man, it was like seeing Seth Rollins transform into Seth freaking Rollins. He was really well done. Super close up. Right, let's get into the rest of this show. We went super long, much like this opening segment. Went super long talking about the start of this, but we'll kind of breeze through some of this.
Yeah, there was a lot of inconsequential stuff, I thought.
I would say so, yeah. They put over Rhea Ripley being on Ariel Helwani's show and how Becky Lynch came in to do an angle on there. Kathy interviewed Becky and said she's going to go to the ring to finish what she started. That will happen later on. This was when I spotted, I haven't got the image for it, but the support WrestleTalk sign.
Yeah. Thank you.
Not only did it say support WrestleTalk, it also said Steiner Math. Greater than all promos.
You can't have it all.
I thought it was great. If you're in the live chat, let us know, because I was delighted to see you. Sorry, someone just said there. It's the number 23 in regards to that, like every 5 years.
Oh my god, the Jim Carrey thing, yeah.
New Day teamed with DIY to take on Judgment Day. I thought an 8-man...
WrestleMania 42, I'm going to go a bit nuts on the Lost thing. I just worked out what it was. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. So when we get to WrestleMania 42, I'm going to work something out.
But 16's one of them.
Yeah. I'm gonna work something out for all of them. Like I don't know what the unifying thing is, but there'll be something.
16 had that ladder match. Maybe you can use that as your like anchoring point.
But 4 didn't.
So yeah, New Day team with DIY to take on Judgment Day. I thought with all 8 of these in the ring in an 8-man tag, this would get into that. Everyone just gets in and does big moves, and I never really felt like it hit that point.
Yeah.
It's like they just did some solid action, and then Damian Priest won.
Oh, and Johnny Gargano tried to, I guess, plow through the announce table head first. Like he really went for it with that dive.
He's reportedly,
he's fine. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this match was going to be. I thought it was going to be something. I mean, I was going to say better than it was, but yeah. I think felt like something is like really harsh. But I did think this was going to be really exciting. And in the end, Priest just won.
I think the ladder match is going to be exciting, if only because there's going to be 12 people on it.
Well, it's going to be hard not to be exciting, really, with that many people. And they announced later on in the show, might as well talk about it here because this is with the tag teams, that it's each set individually is on the line. So the match does not end until all of the belts have been taken down. More or less confirming, underlining, we're splitting the belts in this match.
My question is, well, how is that going to happen? Because if they're all on the same dangly thing, if you've gone up and retrieved it, you'll want to retrieve the second as well. So what does that end look like? And my pitch is that they're on 2 separate things on either side of the ring.
Yeah.
And you have to set up the ladders far away from each other. So I've retrieved those, but now I have to get down and go and get the other one to create that added expense of drama. Or you like the pulley system, like you pull those down and now that'll go up and that's going to come back down with the new ones. I don't know. Something interesting.
Yeah, it needs to be like that PS4 game Inside. So you need like a really like tricky like mental game to work out to get them all both at the right level.
Or they just are all there, and it happens that two people scale out at the same time, and they pull off separate belts.
You did the WrestleMania XL when you have the ladder, the table going across the ladder bridge.
Yeah.
Was that the 16th bridge? Oh yeah, because Matt Hardy gets pushed off of it through the other table. That's absolutely right. The Bloodline hangout. This is where Roman announces that he's inducting Paul Heyman into the Hall of Fame.
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely. A fine choice.
Yeah. Most appropriate, I think, given where we're at this point.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people, myself included, had pitched for either Austin or Dreamer.
Or Punk.
Or Punk. But like Austin and Dreamer in particular were like, that's nostalgia picks. This makes way more sense. And like Heyman has known him since he was a child. It kind of makes...
like with the Samoan connections from all those years ago, there's almost something... poetic about it in a way that I feel like Paul Heyman is going to be remembered. It is now weird to me to see Paul Heyman advocating for Brock Lesnar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I watch back 31 and I see Paul Heyman advocating for Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns, it feels weird to me.
Yeah.
That is why I think this is more appropriate, you know?
We then got a sort of cinematically shot video segment. And this is kind of what I was talking about last week, where I was like, I wish they'd done the Sami thing weeks ago, so we could have had more of this. It was Chad training Sami, and he's training him, and he's pushing him, and he's training him really hard. And then he goes up behind him, and he locks in a chokehold on him. And Sami can't, and he struggles, and because he's worn out and he's exhausted. And he's like, "What are you doing? Like, well, that was so unnecessary. What was that called for?" And this is where Chad's like, "You've lost the hunger. Like, you've lost the hunger to do this. Where's the fire? Where's that fire in your belly to beat Gunther and do this?" And Sami doesn't really... And then essentially just says, like, "Look, I'm scared. I'm afraid. Is that what you want to hear? I'm scared. I'm scared of letting people down again. I'm scared of letting my family down. I'm scared of letting my child cry because I lost another big match." And Chad is like, I wasn't telling you what you wanted to hear. I'm telling you what you needed to hear in terms of you cannot beat Gunther. So let's prove him wrong together." And Sami fires up and he trains some more. He goes through all of the training bits and pieces. And this time when Chad tries to put on the surprise chokehold, Sami throws him off. And then they do that thing where you sort of grab fists like that. And
I see.
Yeah, they do this. And the camera did a little freeze frame on them like it was an 80s montage.
I didn't love this.
Did you not?
No,
I thought you'd be all over this.
So let me tell you what it is. I liked the content. I liked what they were doing. I have an issue where this is me falling into nitpick territory.
Why don't you just enjoy wrestling, Dan?
In the first series of Parks and Recreation, it's filmed like a mockumentary, right? So it's like it's a documentary style. They're talking to the camera, but the camera's all over the place, right? So they go and they have a moment where they arrive in someone's house and they're like not expected to be there, and then it cuts to a camera simultaneously inside the house, and the camera that was filming them outside the house getting ready to knock on the door is no longer there. Where's the camera? If you're filming it like a documentary, I expect to see the camera. It's filming conventions. WWE has this magic invisible camera that nobody should, and they don't watch their own television show and all of this stuff. I suspend an awful lot of my disbelief. This kind of thing, and it's happened a few times on SmackDown. Obviously, it was very big in NXT. The sort of almost like reality show sketch element of it. I'm having trouble marrying all of those things into one cohesive show. So it feels like it sticks out like a sore thumb. If this had been a filmed sequence where like they were following Sami Zayn on his training and they turned that into a montage, I think I would have felt different. It's a very specific media studies thing. When they say when you do media studies or film studies, it ruins watching television for the rest of your life because you kind of can't help but analyze it. That's kind of where I'm at with this segment and other segments like it, like the party girls at the empty club or the New Catch Republic at the coffee shop and all that stuff. I don't really like this style, and that as a result always pulls me out of enjoying the narrative stuff, which I did think was quite good.
That's fair. Yeah. I got big Weird Weekend vibes from this.
Right.
Remember that episode of Louis Theroux? Did you ever see Louis Theroux's Weird Weekend?
I didn't watch it.
I would recommend going to watch the wrestling episode.
Okay.
Because not only is it Louis Theroux doing wrestling, it's wrestling in 2000, which means he goes to the power plant.
Yeah, fun.
And like Skipper's there.
Yeah.
And he goes and he like talks to Roddy Piper and stuff.
Yeah.
And like he talks to Macho Man Randy Savage. Raven gets angry at him because like he doesn't know who he is.
Great.
It's kind of wild to watch, but there's the big part of that weird weekend episode is he goes to the power plant, and Sarge got really offended when he went to a taping of Nitro, and he asked him if wrestling was fake, or asked him about wrestling being fake and staged. So Sarge pushes him in this training session to the point where he throws up, and they're almost like bullying him and being like, is it fake now? Is it fake now? You come to Nitro and you ask me these questions. And it is one of the most iconic episodes of Weird Weekends. That and the Swingers episode, obviously. But like it's that I got massive vibes of that, because it was just watching Sami Zayn get pushed tomorrow. I was like, he's gonna throw up. He's gonna throw up like Louis Theroux did.
Yeah. Like that, all of that content's great. I didn't like the form. Yeah,
I get
content and form.
Well, here's where my issue comes in, because my issue is not connected to that. My issue was, where was this 2 weeks ago?
Right, yeah.
Because my problem is that we haven't seen the training in action. Because in the match that we got next was Sami Zayn versus Bronson Reed, which ended the same way that last week's match did.
Yeah.
Which is that Sami has the match won and then got distracted by Gunther. So none of the training actually paid off into anything. Worse still, this match had no finish.
No, and I liked the angle.
The angle, very good. But if you'd have had that, like, this week, but you'd have had Sami winning matches because of Gable's training techniques.
Right, so, like, he could have won the match, and then he's celebrating, and in his big moment, then Gunther reveals that he's just battered the ever-living crap out of Chad Gable. These two things didn't need to happen side by side. Yeah. Because it would have been, I've learned my lesson and conquered Bronson Reed, ergo I can beat Gunther. Oh, no, Gunther's just battering Chad Gable.
Exactly. But the problem is they didn't want to beat Bronson Reed.
Yeah.
So this match had to have no finish.
In the same way, Ivar then.
In the same way that, they don't want to beat Solo Sikoa because he's facing Jey Uso on SmackDown, so we've got to have no finish.
Yeah,
which I find is the laziest of lazy bookings.
I don't mind it. I think probably because I grew up in the Attitude Era and there were a lot of that. There's a lot of that nonsense going on then, so I don't really mind it as much. I'm used to it. But
that wasn't about protecting stars. That was just more. We just DQ finishes.
Development to chaos. Yeah, I thought this was ineffective, though. I don't usually mind it, but I thought this was ineffective.
So Gunther laid out Chad Gable, and he laid out Sami Zayn. Here's the thing that I did like. I thought this was a wonderful touch. Gunther beats down Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn gets back up, so he chops him down, and Sami gets laid out again. But Sami gets back up. The fire, the desire to win, the resiliency. He's pressed R1 or whatever it is, and he's like R2 and
immediate recovery,
and he's got immediate recovery, and he's getting up. And Gunther lays him out with the title belt, and that's what puts Sami down, which is something Gunther cannot do in their match.
Yeah,
it's a lovely little bit of storytelling to tell you there that Gunther threw everything at him, and Sami kept getting back up. The only thing that puts Sami down is something that Gunther cannot do during their title match. And this is why
I can't fully call it either way, because I think they've done a really good job of...
Me too.
Given that I didn't believe Sami Zayn, I actually thought this was a step down for Sami Zayn. They've done a really good job of making it feel like this is going to be a competitive back-and-forth match, and either of them could win.
Yeah.
And I think fair play. I really liked the angle.
Jay hung out with Lil Wayne, who said he's going to be going to WrestleMania.
What did you call him?
Lil Wayne.
Oh, I thought you called him Little Wayne.
Little Wayne.
Little Wayne.
Little old chap Wayne there. And then Ivy Nile teamed with Maxxine Dupree to take on Candice LeRae and Indi Hartwell. I think our recap of the segment will be longer than the match itself.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I'll be honest, Dan, with a pause there before you said I don't know, I think we have now gone longer than the match itself. Candice,
they got more time than last week.
Oh, whoa. Like, blow me down, Dan. 2 minutes this week. What'll be next? 2.5? An ad break? Candice and Indi argued about Candice's actions, which I would say weren't really cheating.
No, this is what I'm going to say. This match, this story, this whole angle has been weirdly out of order. Like, it's like they've got a bag with moments of a story in it. And they're reaching in and they're like, this week we're going to do invoking your dead family member. And next week we're going to do, cheating to win. And then next week we're going to do episode 1 of the storyline. Okay, like
miscommunication.
There's no logical consistency or narrative through line to all of this. It's infuriating me week on week to the point that I feel like you're doing this on purpose, writers, to bully me. Because what we have here is genuinely an interesting angle and storyline for Candice LeRae and Maxxine Dupri. Candice at the end of it says, you just lost to Maxxine Dupri. That's cringe. Like, interesting angle. The idea that Candice has started to just sod it and cheat to win because she's really frustrated. The idea that she builds so much anger and frustration that Maxxine Dupri doesn't take this seriously, that she just... No wonder that your brother is disappointed in you or whatever from beyond. Like, all of this stuff, bit by bit, does make a good story. Just not in this order. What are we doing?
I reckon, obviously I don't know, I reckon the backlash to the first angle has made them pull back on this massively.
But they should have done the first angle later, because it wasn't bad.
But I think that was going to be step 1, and it was only going to go up from there, which is hard to go up from there, granted.
Yeah.
But I feel that they've just they've massively just pulled back on this storyline.
Odd.
We then had Jay telling Seth that he's got his back tonight.
You've missed all of the Judgment Day lair stuff.
No, that's coming up.
No, but they were dotted throughout the show.
Yeah, no, I was going to do all of that in one
Gotcha.
bit. So Drew then held a funeral for CM Punk's WrestleMania dreams. And he said that Punk's got no Mania main events because his body is brittle.
Mm.
And then he makes fun of Seth Rollins, being said that he's someone who saw Jared Leto's Joker and thought, I'll make that my whole personality.
Devastating blow.
Bearing in mind that Jared Leto's Joker is the worst Joker.
Yep.
And I don't think that Drew's wrong.
No. I even into the balayage.
Yeah. I thought this was a very, very fun promo from Drew.
I loved this promo. I think Drew is worth his weight in gold, and I hope that the Glasgow Tourism Board paid WWE a lot of money and they just put that directly into Drew's bank account. I feel like they probably would have. He's front and center on that poster.
Yeah, I've got to imagine if he hasn't already... I mean, going by what Sean said on the 5 post show, still has not re-signed, but I've got to imagine he's sticking around. His whole deal, apparently, like his whole issue he had was he was upset with his creative and wanted to try this new character. And now he's trying this new character and it's working. So he's probably all right.
Yeah.
Like he was super pissed off with Punk coming in, but that's because he was lied to. So what Sean was saying on the 5 post show is that they were told the night before Survivor Series, he is not coming in. Even though by that point, they had conversations with him to come in for Survivor Series. So Drew was pissed off that they lied to him about the CM Punk thing. But that is now... They've worked all that out, and him and Seth are both fine with it. They were just pissed off in that moment, but they're now okay, and they're now working with him, and everything's grand and fine.
Obviously, last week's promo, there was all the conversations of did they go... I heard a few people be like, I'm worried they went too far, and this is how it all falls apart again. And then the reports came out that actually everything was
fine.
Which is the way it should be. We should be wondering that.
Yeah, of course. That's the way you're blurring of lines. I thought it was great. So I think he's okay. I think he's re-signing.
And I hope so, because... Again, more outstanding work, and then later on in the show, Seth's on the way, and he's just sort of casually leaning on the lamppost on the corner of the street, being like really dead arrogant. And Seth says, like, "Don't count me out" or something, or like, "I'm not dead." And he goes, "Yet," like as he's walking off. He's great. This is exceptional stuff from Drew McIntyre.
Ricochet and Ivar had a very, very fun match.
Yeah, they did. That fall-away slam, though.
Yeah. The commentary were going... I thought Ricochet was doing really standard Ricochet stuff. And Michael Cole and Pat McAfee, oh my God, let's see what he's doing. I'm going, I was so oversell on the standard Ricochet moves. I know I'm not the first person to have said this, but it really feels like a response to not getting Will Ospreay, that they're just like putting Ricochet, like, you got to just be Ricochet again.
Yeah.
And if you can't have Will Ospreay, do it with Ricochet. Like,
well, yeah,
it makes complete sense to me. It's what I would do. But I thought that Ricochet was awesome here. Thought Ivar was fantastic in giving Ricochet everything that he needs to do. It's why Ivar rules. It's why Ricochet rules. Ivar missed the Doomsault. Ricochet picked him up and hit a fall-away slam and hit a 631. Big thumbs up. I think Ricochet's going to win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal.
Ooh, now that wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah.
I can't see... I mean, looking at the lineup, who else?
Yeah, I like it. Like, it was a good match. Did the job. I think this is part of the reason that I'm looking forward to a post-Mania title free-up, because I'd like competitive... I'm always about... You don't need a title match to be a storyline the whole time, but I want to see people get rewarded, and I want to see something be competitive and to be excited about all the various things. And I think it's nice that we're seeing parts of that.
Yeah.
You know?
So this is what you were alluding to earlier, that Dominic Mysterio had brought in Legado del Fantasma from SmackDown. Michael Cole didn't seem as upset about that one. When Damage Control arrived earlier, he was like, ugh! From SmackDown? Ugh, what are these guys doing here? Oh, the women's tag champs, Michael Cole.
Like, he wasn't on SmackDown 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they've got a right to be here. But yeah, Legado del Fantasma were brought in to kind of hang out with the Judgment Day. I don't know if this has happened to you, Dan, but my 23rd birthday, I arranged for everyone to meet up at our local Weatherspoons.
And then Santos Escobar came in.
At the Hope Tap. And I'd arranged like my two different sets of friends.
I never like crossover.
To all meet there because I wanted to celebrate my birthday with my friends. So I had my one group of friends who were like the people I was making films with and I was doing podcasts with. And then there was my other group of friends that were like my work friends or like friends I had from school. Actually, really, it was like 3 sets of friends because it was my friends from working in the entertainer and then some of my school friends.
Yeah, I've got loads of friends.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, I've got none of them now. Dan, I don't speak to a single person
because of this night.
No, I don't speak to a single person from that event, from that period of my life, because I don't hang on to friends for very long. I'm sorry to let you know this.
Oh, that's fine. If you could just give me the deadline so that I can make new plans.
I feel like I've now.
Are we on the way out? Is that what you're telling me?
I feel like I've reaced now the point where I'm like, I think I'm just gonna hold on to these friends. Like I don't need.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the big reset.
Yeah.
The great reset. So I had this party where I suddenly realized, these people don't really know each other. So everyone just kind of went off into different tables. And I found myself just going between all 3 tables to try and like convince some people to go over to this table, to join this group, go over to this table. And it was a really awkward 23rd birthday.
Yeah.
Not helped by the fact that I'd set a gimmick for it, which was to dress as your favorite album cover.
Great.
And only 3 people did it.
Yeah, I never follow a theme.
Yeah.
I don't like dressing up.
Yeah. Well, that's fine, which is weird for an actor.
Well, that's because I do my day job. I don't want to do it at home.
So that I got mad vibes of this, where Dominic was just like, "Hey, look, my 2 groups of friends are coming together. Oh no, they don't like each other." And hey, do you want to play darts? Darts, we all like darts, right? I quite enjoyed it from that aspect. And then later on, Andrade walked in because Damian Priest was annoyed. They're still not sorting out this Ricochet issue. And they said
Ricochet issue?
Well, he's beaten them 3 times.
So?
Well, that's annoying.
So you know who else has beaten them? Everyone. I don't care.
I mean, there'll be 2 teams that will beat them this weekend.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
But anyway, they've got a problem with Ricochet. Well, Damian. I was like, why don't you sort it out then, Damian?
Yeah.
You won quite handily earlier. Why don't you go out there and beat him? But instead they set up Andrade for next week? ? And if Andrade wins, he'll join Judgment Day.
Unless you get at the end of the Battle Royal, Andrade and Ricochet have a nice little 5-10 minutes. I think we've moved past the need as a society for the Judgment Day. I think when I started on this podcast, they were spooky little jobbers, and then before I knew it, they became the most entertaining things on the whole roster. The R-Truth run, Live, Laugh, Love, what a brilliant time that was. We're past it now. I think it's time for their shtick of we run Monday Night Raw was exposed as a lie when they lost War Games. They're going to lose the tag team titles at WrestleMania. I think that's the most natural and smart thing to do. And I think Damian Priest gets to go off and be Damian Priest, Money in the Bank holder, looming threat, heat him up, maybe do something at the end of the summer. I just was so uninterested in all of this. I see Rhea and Dominic having it's time for you both to move on. I see or it's time for you guys to move on outside of the Judgment Day, because I do like their dynamic together, but it feels like Dominic is more interested in the Santos of it all, or the Andrade of it all, and I don't see how Andrade fits with the Judgment Day's whole vibe. Like,
I think he's got a different plan.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not it anymore. And I had a nice run, and it's not you, it's me, and I just think we are done.
I agreed. Becky came out for a promo, and then Rhea came out, and Adam Pearce came out first, so that's not going to happen. And then Rhea came out, and they did have a brawl, and Security broke it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of Control-C, Control-V from last week.
Yeah, I wrote
but without the good promo stuff.
I wrote in my notes last week that I wished Rhea hadn't thrown hands last week, and instead Becky had taken it all out on Dominic, so that we would have then had this be the moment they finally get their hands on each other and it all goes a bit chaotic and wild. I actually thought the angle they pulled on Helwani was cringe, and then Helwani exposed the whole thing, didn't he, by like posting a video of them all hanging out or something like that. I was like, well, what's the point of that? Like,
well, he's bad at his job.
Well, yeah, I mean, don't tell me twice. I also have been reading Becky's book. It's a great book. And
I mean, you never mentioned this on podcast, Dan, that you're reading her book at the moment.
Just trying to prove to people that I know how to read.
So it's like when you were reading Brian Gowitz's book. It's like, by the way, I'm currently reading Brian Gowitz's book.
Some people don't tune in every week, Luke.
I've always had a Stan Lee ethos, which is that every comic book is someone's first comic book.
Yeah.
So I should really, like, every WrestleTalk podcast is someone's first podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers don't suggest that.
And I need everybody to know that I'm able to read. But yeah, no, it's a really interesting book, and I'm a big Becky fan. I'm reading in all the stuff. I find a lot of the things that she's talking about interesting. I think the more, I don't know why they haven't really looked at Becky's business as the man, you know, trying to change the game. Like, I rewatched the Women's Evolution 24 documentary. I was watching a lot of 24 documentaries over the Easter weekend because I was cleaning. And there was some really interesting stuff in there about how, you know, the Attitude Era gave way to the Divas Era, and even when like Lita and Trish were trying to fight through it or whatever, you'd still get, you know, they're all, and it's PG now, but they're still all about their boobs and things like that. And that's the system that Becky speaks very movingly, and I'm gonna go into some slightly heavy stuff here.
It says Dan's woke rant.
Not even a woke rant. This is just me warning people who might be of a sensitive disposition. I'm gonna talk about some heavy stuff. Becky talks a lot about having an eating disorder, which is something that I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if I've heard her talk about too much, but she basically says that she felt that she needed to look a certain way if she was going to be able to get into the industry, and that combined with her insecurity led her to a long-lasting and chronic eating disorder. So she worked really hard to reapportion her health and her outlook on self-worth and life and food and fitness to get to the point where she was then able to be the man. So when she starts seeing Rhea Ripley doing numbers on the internet from doing a stink face and being seen as this sexual object that everyone is simping over, that's difficult for her. That's a really interesting story that hasn't really been brought up. It was mentioned very briefly last week, but I would have liked to see more discussion about that. I find the match compelling. Just the way the angles have worked has not kind of worked for me. There's this interesting argument within that about the difference between, and it's very nuanced, and maybe there's no space for this on a wrestling show, between being sexual and being sexualized. You know, like there's an interesting conversation to be had there. I'm a little bit like, this go home angle did nothing for me, and that's weird because I've been looking forward to this match for months.
I think it's because it was the same one we had last week,
Probably.
Just without the promo.
And I've seen more interesting stuff elsewhere.
And I think part of the other problem is that
from both of them, because Rhea Ripley was also, what she said was, I never talked about posting my ass. That was something Becky said. So Rhea got a pushback as well. Yeah. I liked that.
It was the other thing I think that's been slightly stumbling for this feud is that for a few weeks it wasn't the focus.
Yeah,
it was sort of the focus. Rhea was like, Becky's putting herself in matches, and now she's going to run herself ragged going into WrestleMania. But then they sort of stopped doing that for the last couple of weeks, and Becky's not been wrestling matches, and now they're both fresh as a daisy. So like that storyline hasn't paid off into the actual, like the storyline they were doing has not paid off into any of these angles.
It's a funny one because I almost want to like, I don't envision a world where WWE are booking 2-night WrestleManias. Are they ever going to bat 100? I don't. Is that a correct terminology? I think 100% bat 1,000. I don't know. They're never going to knock it out of the park every single time. This one has stumbled. Elsewhere, I was really enjoying it. Outside of the stuff that's happening on TV, I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if I really fully blame them for it. I just was unenthused.
And then the last thing to talk about is Damage Control taking on the team of Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, and Tegan Nox in a match that really felt like you're playing My GM mode. And you're like, I've run out of people. But I need to book a trios match. But Tegan Nox is available.
Did they mention it anywhere about Tegan Nox and Dakota?
No. And the match built to those two being like, them facing off. But the commentary made no reference to Team Kick.
Odd. This is what I mean by it being a bit limp. Like, I was already I've given more to the Becky and Rhea segment than I think the writers did. And this was, like you say, just a match that was sort of thrown in there so Damage Control can show off.
Yeah, it was to get put over Damage Control because they've got the trios match at WrestleMania.
Yeah, they need to look like they've got a win going in because they looked like jumps last week, I suppose.
Yeah, so they need to get a win, and they got a win on TV here. Insane Elbow, and yeah, they won. So that was the last thing to talk about on the show. I thought it was fine. I thought it was a really good show, actually. I was about to say fine, but I think that's wrong. I thought this was a very good show because I thought the opening and closing were really, really strong, as they should be. It's the main event of WrestleMania, so it should be the most hot thing in the company. But I thought the Becky Rhea, I think, needed more. I thought Drew and Seth needed more. I thought that Sami and Gunther needed more. I think they did some of their better go-home angles last week and not here on the go-home show.
I thought it was artisan handmade sourdough bread with a filling of shop-bought economy brand coleslaw. It was really lovely on either side of it. The middle was a bit whatever.
Yeah.
What's
wrong with coleslaw?
Nothing but that own brand.
Own brand coleslaw is fine.
Show me your own brand because my local's not very good.
Is it not? Oh, well. Come around my way. Anyway, let's get into the rest of your Ultra Chats. We have a poll up, so please do vote. If you thought this was thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, we'll reveal that before the end. Brody here said, joining in the conversation, WrestleTalk.com/support. Brody said, it's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Bad fantasy booking idea. Rock pins Seth night 1, then again night 2 for the title after Drew loses to make the World Heavyweight Championship disappear. Cody then beats Roman with Rock's help. WrestleMania X7 heel turn swerve. Dark hair Cody debuts on the Raw after Mania, and The Rock runs SmackDown.
You are right there, Brody. That was some bad fantasy booking.
GG Baxter said the blank slot on the Mania slot after the ending of the Braid doc. Do we think that we could see Bo's return, or are we thinking Raw after Mania? Surely there's teasers, hint at something soon. So this
I actually haven't seen it yet.
So this is from the Bray documentary. At the end of it, they had a teasing image for Bo Dallas. Mm-hmm. And Sean Rossap over at 546 reported, yeah, that's not by accident. Bo's coming back, and they don't know when, but he's going to be coming back soon.
Yeah.
And this was done to be the start of Bo is returning to TV.
I think I did see one tweet, and I haven't seen the documentary yet. I'm looking forward to it, but someone said that it's hard to not root for Bo Dallas massively after that documentary. And I think if that works for Bo, then I'm interested to see what they're going to play with, because a lot of stuff was had a lot of potential.
Some guy said Drew should win at Mania and lose via cash-in immediately. It's something I've been pitching for a while. Slow build face turn and finally have his moment in his home country at Clash in the Castle. Thoughts?
We just got to the slow build heel turn.
We talk about this on the WrestleMania predictions podcast tomorrow, but I am kind of pushing now for Drew going into Clash at the Castle as champ.
Can I tell him my idea?
Go for it.
Look, it's in Glasgow, it's in Scotland, it's in June, so there's a little bit of time. I want Drew's heel character, the savior of WrestleMania. I took CM Punk away from everybody. I want him to go in as full Braveheart, freeing us all, freeing the people from the tyranny of CM Punk once and for all. I'm going to write him out of the country. I think it would be lovely. So we've got loads of Ultra Chats to get through. So Zico has been a member for 31 months in a row. Says, howdy lads, I hope you're ready for the longest WrestleMania of all time, as we will have not one but 2 Roman entrances, equally 6 hours combined. Love you, kiss. Big MGM, solid Raw for me. Love them showing Dom's growing into a leader and Rhea being insecure that he's becoming independent. Love the closing segment, and I feel they should have had Jay and Jimmy in on the lashing, especially after the opening yeet chant. Well, the crowd were also chanting for CM Punk in that closing segment as well. I thought, well, good luck to you, Brooklyn, but I don't think that ain't happening. Aiden said, but I do agree that Jay and Jimmy should have been involved in that final segment. I like the Rhea being insecure thing, and especially if we're going for a double turn situation. That's a great way to sort of separate them.
Aiden, I genuinely feel like I'm the only person that wants Becky to beat Rhea. Is she gonna? Probably not, but I'm still backing her in predictions. After finishing her book, I love Becky more than I thought was possible, and yes, I'm very biased towards that match.
That's interesting, because I'm actually reading Becky's book at the moment, and I also have Becky to win.
Desus said, what?
My joke.
Sorry? Because you were reading Becky's book. Yeah.
I did that for you.
I just thought you were being serious though. I just hear you say it so much. I don't know what's fact and joke anymore.
I come to work to get bullied. I come to work to do the bullying.
Jesus is, what do you think of Seth losing the belt via distraction? Because like Drew, he's too focused on the bloodline. Then Priest comes in to cash in and Drew loses via distraction from Punk.
I don't want a cash in. I don't think it's time. Yeah, I don't think he's ready.
They've given him some like wins on TV and stuff. Like
So-
he had a dominant win here, but he does not feel like he's world. He did when he won Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But that was in July.
I thought he could have done it at SummerSlam.
I think
Finn wins, cash it in or something. I don't know. It's not time.
I think it's a bit of a Triple H booking crutch. Is that I think he does let people who are hot get cold.
Yeah, I think I'll just put him in the microwave.
Yeah. Kevin here said, Luke, did Cody getting whipped bring back any nice memories for you too? First thing I thought was, man, Cody loves getting whipped on TV. He did do a lot of whipping angles on AEW.
Oh, I thought you and Kevin had history. I didn't know. I was like, what's he referencing here? Okay, that makes sense.
Mr. Eli Mack, I know I'm probably the only one, but the Sami Chad video package got me crying. Sami's acting was so good in that segment that it got me thinking that he might win the match. I don't know why, but I always thought that this Judgment Day Ricochet stuff has been leading to a Braun Strowman return, so they can do Braun and Ricochet versus the Judgment Day. I'm probably the only one thinking that, though. I actually forgot Braun was still with them because he's currently still out injured.
Yeah, he is on the injured. And I liked their tag team. It was building to something nice. So
Ryan Conger said, hey Luke and Dan, thanks for shouting out my sign last night. Oh! Happy to send you a full image. Steiner Math greater than all promos. Yes, please, Ryan. If you can do it on Instagram so I don't have to go to Twitter, or email it to support@wrestletalk.com.
Thank you for taking the sign.
Oh, Ryan.
Big time, Ryan.
Yes. Ryan, I don't know if you've seen today's WrestleTalk news. It is a big part of that episode. Himothy said, I think the tag match ending was set up to make it look like to make Damien look strong for a potential cash-in after they lose the tag belts. He got in the ring and laid out 3 guys by himself and just won. Well, again, you know, that's classic Triple H book. It is like, oh, I've done nothing with this at 10 months. 1 week will sort that out.
Do a cash-in like France, just not WrestleMania. It's not time.
Rooster Libre has been a member for 29 months in a row. Said, I think Gunther will retain despite the Sami Chad Rocky 3 arc. I think Dragunov will take the belt again when he comes for him on the main roster. So,
there was a report over the weekend.
Yeah, so the report is that Dragunov is going up once he loses the world title.
But
he's probably not losing it this weekend.
I also read that they were not sure how it was going to work because he spends so much time going back and forth.
Well, that's why he's staying in NXT so much at the moment, because he's still doing I'm going back and forth between Florida and Germany.
But
so
Jesus,
they need to figure that out before they bring him up to the main roster. Booking Like a Mark said, Roman said he'd come alone to the face-off. He broke his word. Rock said that he'd make Cody bleed. He kept his word. Cody and Seth win at WrestleMania. On night 2, Roman calls for the Bloodline, breaking his word. Rock stops the interference, keeping his word.
Interesting.
We have a Streamlabs missing name. Please do let our moderators know. It said, I think we're missing the biggest element on this show. Drew was in the TNA chapel where they did the death of Team 3D and later Aces at an 8. So true story. When they did that, I was like, oh, this is a bit like a TNA angle they did for the death of America's Most Wanted. Oh, no, it was America's Most Wanted did it for Team 3D. That's what I was getting images of. And I remember at the time when that happened, the reports from like Meltzer and Alvarez were like, it's being touted as the best thing that TNA's ever done. Like, it's a genuinely brilliant angle. I didn't realize it was the same location, though. That's amazing.
Damning with faint praise.
The Poet's Poet said, I just wish that Ariel had asked Punk, how long do you think you'll last at a Target or any retail stores for that matter?
I just wished Ariel had asked some insightful questions.
Ariel Helwani is that podcast interviewer who goes into an interview with 10 questions written out and then just asks those 10 questions, even if someone has already answered one of them that comes up later.
Oh, really? Really? Oh, really? 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 He's no Oprah. I want Oprah to do a Punk interview.
Moose here said, there was a portion of me that was thinking this review might be skipped just to talk about that interview. I left the wrestling around 2013, but I feel like this is what it was like when that podcast came out. Good episode of Raw, though. Can't wait for WrestleMania. As I said, we were going to do a whole bonus show around it, but time kind of got in the way of us. D-Man Gamer got around to watching the Bray Wyatt documentary this morning, and it was an interesting watch. Hearing the story of Wyatt through WWE's lens, hearing from his family, makes for an interesting perspective given how he was booked. What did you think? I've only seen the Bo Dallas bit at the end. I was going to mention this earlier, but like, I cannot bring myself to watch it yet.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm emotionally ready to watch it yet.
I'm dead inside, so I can. No, I feel like it's going to be a very powerful watch at some point. This is the week for it. Like, I feel like the Roman doc, this doc, it's such a unique thing celebrating this time of year is such a unique time of year, and celebrating a mind like his and knowing how involved the family are and how how much he meant to people as well, I think is going to make for a really powerful watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all put together.
I don't think I'm fully ready for it yet, particularly because I do know that they talk about Brody's passing as well, and I'm not mentally ready for that. Tyler said, "Hey fellas, great episode of Raw. Wanted to ask you something different though. Have either of you watched the Bray Wyatt documentary? I watched it today, got to the last 20 minutes before I started bawling. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Taylor, Bo Dallas was incredible.
I imagine I'm gonna cry. Like I remember the day the news broke, and it was rubbish.
Awful.
Rubbish.
Caleb Cannon, love this episode and I'm beyond excited for WrestleMania. I'm road tripping 11 hours to attend both nights with friends. What titles do you think are changing hands and which are staying put? Also, is there a way to watch the most recent SmackDown podcast? Caleb, you don't want to see it. It's bad. I've watched it back in the back ends. I mean, when I say I watched it back, I was skipping through it, be like, oh yeah, nope, yeah, that is bad. So no, I'm afraid not. But yeah, it's funny when people say like, oh, I'm road tripping for 11 hours. I want to sort of like highlight these chats to be like, and this is why when WWE do a show in Germany that is competing against All In, that is directly competing for the same market because that's only a 2-hour flight.
Right. It would be quicker for me to get to Philadelphia than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like that is a 2-hour flight from me to get to Berlin, or from people from Berlin to get to London. So they are direct markets. Real Cammy.
They're also different weekends, so I'll do both.
Yeah. Well, all right, money bags. Some of us have got kids to feed. Real Cammy. What's my luck? First pay-per-view here in Scotland gets announced, and it's the same day I fly to Germany for the Euros. Why can't I have both?
Oh, that's why the hotel was cheaper. No one's going to be there.
Does Scotland qualify?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I suppose they're not going anywhere either, are they?
Yeah.
HD said, I think the Punk interview confirmed for me that the truth is that there's a lot of egos at AEW. I'm not convinced he was wholly innocent, but I got terrible vibes from the Bucks.
I think sorry.
No, you go.
I just think the whole thing about the Punk thing was interesting for me because I've seen people online and in real life be a little bit like, I'm done with the guy, like I don't want to hear from him anymore, I'm sick of I'm really disappointed in him, I've lost all interest. For me, I kind of just watched the whole thing and was just like, I saw the mess that is CM Punk. I saw all of his takes and all of his perspectives. I saw the holes in some of it. I saw the bits where he'd convinced himself that he was doing the responsible thing. That sentence where he said, I only choked him a little bit.
Yeah. That's the responsible thing. I didn't punch him.
I just choked him a little bit. I'm like, that's still a big overreaction. Like, to be honest with you, seeing all the mess, from him, recognizing that, I don't imagine that he behaved perfectly. I don't imagine the books behaved perfectly. I don't know the answer to these questions. This is one complicated guy's experience was fascinating for me.
Yeah.
Taking anything he said or anyone said as pure gospel is a really that way lies danger.
I agree. You and I were talking about this earlier, just before we started doing the Mania predictions. We should have filmed it really. We were just chatting and we had a big conversation about this in the office as well. But like it's the most perfect CM Punk interview because he does not see his own hypocrisy. Yeah. And I think Helwani not calling him out on that, I think is one of the reasons why I don't think that Helwani did a very good job in the interview. Like, one of Punk's real issues with AEW was that wrestlers talk to the dirt sheets and wrestling reporters talk to wrestlers. And yet, from the Fightful Select report, some people know, I was like, well, the Jack Perry story, where do you think that came from? And Sean has said as much. He was like, Punk talks to reporters all the time.
Yeah.
He talks to Meltzer, he talks to Sean, he talks to Albert, he talks to all of these wrestling reporters the same amount that all the other wrestlers do as well. And the Jack Perry real glass story only became a public thing because CM Punk told the media about the story.
And I think there's a really interesting way to frame a question like that doesn't have it be accusatory or be like, you big dirty hypocrite. Yeah. You just sort of say, you're a part of that as well.
Exactly.
What is going on in the industry that you think makes people feel the need to get their word out? Like, it's an interesting question. There's so much insight that I think there was a lot to take away from the Punk interview, but even more that didn't even get looked at. Yeah, I thought.
Particularly, he tells the story of he got left at the airport.
Yeah,
when he came in for All In. But I've heard the other side of that story. You know, through speaking with people, that's not 100% accurate to what happened. It's partly true, but Punk then decided, oh, I'm going to ignore the actual option you've given me to get there, and I'm going to make my own way instead.
I mean, Rihanna got the tube once, so it's fun.
I said at the time as well, the way he ended up on the Bakerloo line, like he did a lot of that on purpose. There's no way, language. There's no way anyone makes that level of mistake on the tube.
Yeah.
Justin here said, I understand the idea last week was a hotter episode, but I did like them using last week and the end of the night to hammer home the main events of Mania and the rest of this week to hype up the other Raw matches for Mania. James here said, very excited for WrestleMania. Build-up has been great. Luckily enough to be there live. Thanks for all you do. Much love.
I'm jealous.
Anson Reinhardt has been a member for 14 months. Said, went from a fun Raw ending to sobbing at the Bray Wyatt documentary. Cody needs to win Sunday. It might be my favorite Mania if they do it right. Jam that jam. Kendall said, hey guys, I missed your SmackDown review. Cannot seem to find it anywhere. Just curious on what your thoughts were on Jade's official debut and what stories do you think could be told or hinted at in that match. I'm hoping seeds are planted for Jade versus Bianca. I'll give you my brief thoughts on that because I talked about it at length on a SmackDown podcast that unfortunately is lost to time. I thought you couldn't have had a more perfect debut for someone. The segment itself was about, here's the presentation, simple to the point promo, and this is my character.
Yeah.
As all you needed for that segment. And then, in the main event, you inserted her into a storyline that features Bianca Belair. It is a storyline that features the women's tag team champions. It is a storyline that, by extension, involves the women's world champion and the winner of the 2024 Royal Rumble. So you've inserted her into a main event picture straight away.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to give comparisons, to me and Sat kind of talked a little bit about this. You want to give some comparisons to the Mercedes Moné thing, where she's come in, huge hype and presentation, and then the week after that did a promo, then the week after that did commentary. I think that this was a bigger like rocket strap to someone than you could have asked for. I don't think you could have asked for a more perfect debut for her.
I just every ounce of that entrance, my mouth was on the floor. I thought it was exquisite. She looked incredible. The music, the lighting effects is one of those rare things that looks better live than it does in person. Like on camera, sorry. I thought the match is going to be great. I like you there. I hope the seeds are being planted for something along the lines. I'd rather we take our time to get to it. I'd rather it be like, oh, this is side by side. Like I'm not in a rush. I like the idea of side by side. It being like we're kind of equals. But like we have the same fitness. We're athletes in the same way. Do you want to mix it up and see how this? Let's find out who's the best, rather than it being like a blood feud or anything like that. I'm into it. Yeah. I like it.
So I was going to reply. Someone here said like, well, why do you believe them? Why is Punk the one that's lying? I didn't say Punk was lying,
but that's it.
There are two sides to a story,
and that's why. I mean, I was on Twitter trying to push for people to watch the whole thing rather than read headlines and tweets because I think when you watch things with time and patience and you look at it, you can kind of see the fuller picture of what someone's saying and read intent and read how maybe they're not telling the 100% truth because that's not how truth works. Like there's the three sides to every story. That whole thing. I just thought it was an interesting insight into the full person, really.
Much in the same way that his Art of Wrestling podcast was.
It's interesting to me when people were so hype on that Art of Wrestling podcast and he's 100% telling the truth, and now he's 100% not telling the truth. That's an interesting conversation.
So I think if I'm going to put on some big philosophical hats, so I'm so sorry to my moderators, we're going way long on this episode. We've still got some UltraChats to get through here, but if I can just put on my armchair philosopher hat here, my armchair therapist hat on here. In 2014, wrestling fans hated WWE.
Yeah.
It was just not a good product. And in 2013, it wasn't a good product. And in 2015, it wasn't a good product. In 2016, it wasn't a good product, apart from NXT, obviously. So fans were naturally designed. And I would say when I started working here, fans watched WWE but didn't like the product. Yeah. 2017 was a bad year. 2018 was a bad year. 2019 was a bad year. So this guy coming out and just telling us everything that we've been thinking about this is true. And you're like, oh, right, yeah. So it kind of works. But he's now coming out talking about a company that people do like while working for a company that people really like.
Right.
So if he's talking about a company that people do like and there is like a very rabid fan base for AEW, they're immediately going to jump on well, he's clearly lying. He's clearly hypocritical. He's clearly this. He's clearly that. Whereas the Art of Wrestling one was a company that 100%
There's a
of wrestling.
catharsis to that.
It was a cathartic episode.
Yeah.
This one didn't have that cathartic feel to it because there's this tribalistic war between fan bases.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Thank you. Kieran, I thought of that when I was on the train. Kieran Gibbs said, "Clash of the Castle is going to be in Scotland, but when they felt the need to do a delay." But when they felt the need to delay the announcement, I thought they were going to do Wembley for a hot minute. Your ticket record stays intact, TK, for now.
Yeah, they weren't going to do Wembley because there wasn't a lion. If it was, they kind of gave the game away with the little Scotland logo.
Yeah.
If it was 3 lions, now we'd be talking.
I mean, it tells you also that because it's not in England, which is what WWE wanted to do. WWE wanted to do
it's also in an arena, not a stadium.
Yeah, well, WWE wanted to do Wembley. Like, this is the story from last year. When AEW did really well in Wembley, they were like, no, we want to do Wembley now. But London won't pay for WWE to come to London because they don't need their business. And WWE won't do a show unless they are being paid to do a show in those locations.
Fair enough.
So if they can't, but by that same token, Manchester would pay for them to go, but they don't want to do a show in Manchester. They want to do a show in London.
You just wait until they redo Old Trafford. Then we're talking.
Ten Rosa said, guys, good luck this week. Punk gave his side with holes in the story. Him saying guaranteed money was bad is insane. AEW's new COO is already doing things. Sadly, incredible people got let go. Hope back. Paul Nick in the Vince update. Love letter was gross. Yeah, and there's a lot to go into. I mean, there's almost too much news going on. Sad about the AEW releases, though. Like, a lot of those names like really suck. You know, Stu Grayson only came back to the company last year. Jose the Assistant was on TV quite a bit.
Yeah.
The Boys were they were a stipulation for this weekend's Supercard of Honor. King Scorpion said, hey guys, first time I've been able to watch live, sort of. Came in halfway through. Haven't been this excited for a road to WrestleMania since 37. But I can't help but laugh at how none of the matches, except a few, were planned from the start.
That's it. I mean, the road to WrestleMania, you've got to be able to book on the fly. You've got to be able to go with the crowd. I think it shows where the company is at now creatively that they're able to do that.
The derbiest of derbs. Hey lads, curious on your thoughts on the TNT title match from Collision, because hot damn, every time I see Cardona, I wonder how one of the two bigs haven't signed him. Could be that they have tried and he just has said no.
Yeah.
He's making way more money on the indies than he would do if he signed with WWE or AEW.
Yeah.
Scotland did qualify for the Euros.
Good for them.
Their first match is the day before Clash of the Castle, June 14th.
That will be an interesting night in Glasgow if I do manage to get tickets.
Baptized Atheist said 7 a.m. here on the West Coast, and it's always great to hear wrestling news first thing in the morning. You're welcome. You're welcome. Dylan Haggett. Hi, Luke. Hi, Dan. To promote 2K24, what Mania matches would you give the ambulance, casket, and special guest referee steps to? Well, I would have given Drew and Seth
Special
ref with Punk. Ambulance, AJ and LA Knight.
Oh, yeah, fun. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
And casket match to the Final Testament Pride match.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Fanta Consumer has been a member for 3 months in a row. First of all, I salute you lads, my favourite channel. I appreciate you talking about this story through the lens of toxic masculinity. Refreshing. Thank you very much. Space Viking, if 2024 is the year of truth, then it should be said that Luco and DAD and Dan Freakin' Layton are the best duo for wrestling reviews.
Don't know if I want to take Freakin' as another nickname. I already have about 12.
Kyle, Steiner Math beats Pipe Bomb because Steiner could do the math today and it would feel the same. If Punk did the Pipe Bomb now, even an AEW Pipe Bomb, he would feel like a parody of himself. I think the most mind-boggling thing about Steiner Math is that that's the second take.
Coming soon, a Wrestle feature on specifically the Steiner Math promo.
And according to Samoa Joe, first take was exactly the same.
Great.
It's just that Petey Williams cracked up.
Good.
And so they had to do it a second time.
Look, there you go.
And Josh here said, hi guys, great to see you getting recognition on Raw this week. The WrestleTalk sign. Shout out to that guy. Do you guys think that AEW is the new WCW and will go out of business? Punk seems to think so. Well, no, Punk said the opposite. He said we'll always be in business if Tony Khan's putting money into it.
I said earlier on when we were talking that the comparison that I think you're sort of drawing there is that WCW stayed in business for a long time because it was Ted Turner's baby. When Ted Turner subsequently lost power at Time Warner, that meant that the people who were in control lost interest and didn't want it on the network anymore. That this is a different situation to your point. I hope not. I really hope not. No, I've said before that I don't care about AEW or WWE specifically as companies. I care about the wrestlers. It's why it's sad to see all of them get released. Yeah. It's why it's good to see that Matt Cardona can afford to make money outside of both of them, because when the industry is healthy, we get a better experience as fans. the wrestlers get a better opportunity. I also do think, guaranteed money is always a good thing. Incentives are also a good thing, but guaranteed money is something that wrestlers and employees of all stripes deserve.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully AEW does, blazing guns for as long as possible.
Tony Khan's a billionaire. $1 billion is a lot of money.
It's too much money.
And he's got a lot of billions.
Yeah.
And the company makes money. And so I don't think that, I will never understand it's WCW in 2000. Those people have never seen WCW in 2000. I've only ever seen a documentary about it.
Also, the landscape is so different.
Landscape is completely different.
So metrics by which WCW was measured to, AEW, if Tony Khan wanted to, he could make his own service.
Well, the thing is, everyone's like, oh man, their numbers at these live events are so low. And I was like, but 5 years ago, 6 years ago, one of the conversations was like, man, Ring of Honor drawing 1,000 fans is massive. And they were the third biggest promotion. It was like, that's a huge gate that they did for drawing 1,000 fans.
Yeah.
What a huge success.
I do think it needs to, if I can be honest, I do think it needs to have a look at itself. I do think it needs to, I think it needs to stop booking massive arenas and half filling them.
Absolutely.
I think it would perception is reality. And if you can pack tiny arenas full of people and give a rabid NXT Full Sail energy, then...
And I think the problem is that they booked those arenas because you have to book them so far in advance. You booked those arenas when you were a much hotter product and you were filling out those buildings on a weekly basis. And now they're not. And maybe now they'll have to go, now they're booking, for the future of booking smaller places. And local advertising, I think, is one of their major downfalls. That's what a lot of people in America say. It was like, I didn't even know they were coming into town. I think that them being focused on them and being focused on what makes them unique towards WWE, I think is only going to benefit them. I think in 2023, they tried to do a lot of WWE light things, and I don't think it worked in their favor. And 2024 is about, a lot of fans have been like, the feeling's back. And it feels like it's a hot and exciting product. It's just whether or not people are still willing to give that another shot. That'll be the case. It's not 2019 anymore. That'll be the thing. But there it is.
It's a lot thinner then. I wish it was sometimes.
So we now have an overall rating for this episode, and it's 80% thumbs up with 17% thumbs in the middle. So solid episode. It's a solid 4 out of 5 episode. That's what I gave it in the news. Spoilers, you haven't watched it yet. So thank you all so much for watching. We will be back tomorrow with the WrestleMania predictions, and then we'll be back on Thursday with the AEW Dynamite review, and then this weekend, it's WrestleMania, baby. Woo! As we'll be doing Night 1 and Night 2 live reactions in conjunction with Hooked on Wrestling. Click the link to check out Hooked on Wrestling in the video description down below. Till then, I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been Dan, the Truth, the Professor, freaking Leighton, your Jam That Champion. Jam that jam.